Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a special episode of our at-home programming where we're gonna do a deep dive into the other theme park in Orlando. That's right, welcome to Universal News Tonight. Tonight! Don't tell Tom I did that, I've always wanted to do that. We have a special panel of Universal enthusiasts, Rob Whiteside.
Hey, how are you?
Colleen Seller?
Tyler.
Hi. Tyler, sorry. And Ron Piana. I'm Alicia, and I'll be your host this evening. Just to start off real quick, does anyone want to share their Universal experiences? I know that Colleen loves Harry Potter, obviously. Proud Ravenclaw over there.
I just wanted to talk about Harry Potter, and Tom wouldn't let me just have a show where I could talk about Harry Potter.
Well, now we're going to get to talk about Harry Potter.
If the parks are closed much longer, he might give in and just be like, fine, Colleen, go talk about Harry Potter. I don't care.
What about you guys down there beneath me?
Ron? I think he's on mute. Are
Ron,
you on
you're
mute?
muted. Ron, you're muted.
My first trip to Universal was in '91 with a fifth grade end of the year trip. Went pretty regularly until I moved to Orlando in '98. Had the annual pass the whole time I was there. Worked there for about 6 months in 2003, right after college. And just been going back since semi-regularly, at least for horror nights over the last 7-8 years again.
Mm-hmm. Ron?
So I have a huge problem in the fact that I have an unhealthy allegiance to Disney, and so whenever I go to Universal, I feel like I'm cheating. I feel like I have to sneak in while I'm there. I feel like I need to make sure I kind of point out, well, that's not as good as Disney, and that's not as good as Disney. But that said, I've been a huge fan of these parks because I've been going almost since they opened. And I'm seeing a lot of changes. Like every iteration, I've seen like what was there before Minions, what was there before Jimmy Fallon. So I have a love for these parks, but I kind of hate that I love them. And also Horror Nights was not a huge thing for me until this past year was the first time I went. So. And I'm a believer now. I get it. I totally get it. So I'm on board. But I also think that that there are some things that they've done that are so Disney that it kind of feels okay to be a fan of them. And I don't know if you guys are the same way, but I can't tell you how many people in my life I've corrected who think that Universal is part of Disney. That it's all one, or they're like, yeah, I went to the Magic Kingdom and Universal, but they meant Hollywood Studios. Like there've been I feel like in our society, in our group, we know the difference, and outside of that, I feel like a lot of people just don't. It doesn't matter to them.
Or you're in Magic Kingdom, they're like, "Where's Hogwarts?" And it's like, no, not here. Please.
Adventureland. I used to get asked where Jaws was all the time, and I would actually started giving them instructions on how to walk there.
One of my favorite Instagram accounts is Overheard at Disney, and so it's just things people submit, random stuff they hear, and a lot of it is like, where's Hogwarts? How do I get to Universal? But I like when cast members will respond to them being like, we don't own Universal yet.
Oh no.
And not entertained.
Yeah, and you know what? They're definitely in the same class, though, right? So I mean, like, I get that some people they see them the same. I mean, it's bigger than Busch Gardens, and I mean, they're very similar. I mean, it's movie making companies that made theme parks. But like I said, I have a huge allegiance to Disney, but I do love these parks. But as you can tell, I don't have a lot of Universal swag other than like this shirt and like a wand. That's what I have. So
my wand is somewhere else, but I was like, I could point with it, but then I'd feel weird. But I am repping my 2013 Horror Night shirt. That was the first year I went, so we'll go with that.
I actually realized I don't have a Universal Studios Harry Potter shirt because I go in full uniform normally. So I
Well, that
was
makes
like,
sense.
I don't know what shirt to wear. I don't know. I didn't really talk about anything other than Harry Potter. We moved here when I was 8, and I don't know if we went to Universal like that one year we lived here before we moved away. We were always more Disney people because my mom and Shannon and I aren't like roller coaster people. So it always felt like Universal Studios was a lot more roller coaster heavy, and we'd be like, I want to ride any of these rides. I do remember going twice for a school field trip. We went in science class, and like I measured Hulk's speed, and we went with like drama, and we saw like the makeup show, and we got to ride Spider-Man with the lights on.
That's really cool.
Which was cool. And I was looking at like the list of rides, and it was kind of like, obviously once they built Harry Potter, we stopped going to the rest of the park. So there's all these older rides that we rode and these newer rides that we haven't, because now Shannon and I go, we ride Men in Black, then we go into Diagon Alley, and we have lunch there, and we're there for half the day, and then we take the train and we go to Hogsmeade and we have dinner there, and when it's time to go home.
Well, I grew up a Disney kid. Like I grew up in Florida, so I'm flirting. And we always had Disney passes. And then I think when I was like 12 or 13, I was like too cool for Disney, and so we started going Universal, and I really fell in love with it there. And I ended up going to school on the back lot. So I went to like basically how to make movies and like video games and stuff. And our school happened to be Soundstage 25. So we had backlot clearance and stuff. So we would totally go into the parks using like our employee badge. Basically, it's just like you're allowed on the backlot badge. And so we went to Universal like pretty much every day. This was around the time that Diagon Alley was being built, and I have a really cool story about the dragon, but I'll save that for later when we get there. Just a quick note, when we were talking about creating a Universal show, originally I didn't know what that was going to look like, and I was just kind of like, sure, I'll host it. In the past, we've ranked attractions, and I knew we didn't want to do that again. We did that with Nathan a couple years ago on the marathon show. But I realized one thing here at WDWNT that kind of matters to all of us as a whole, regardless of the theme park, where it is theming. Theming is huge to us. It's a big part if we like something or not. So tonight on the show, we're going to do a deep dive into the different theming found around Universal Orlando Studios and Islands of Adventure. So I think kind of the perfect place to start, if we're all ready. Looks like chat's ready. Real quick, I want to say thank you to Jesse Edwards for the super chat. That's very nice of you. We appreciate it. Keeps us bloggers eating. So let's dive in. The first place to start when you first walk in is Production Central. After you scan your ticket, this is kind of the generic looking main street of Universal, I would say. It's supposed to be themed after a backlot. In this area of the park, you'll find the attractions Despicable Me, Minion Mayhem, Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket, Shrek 4D, and Transformers The Ride 3D. The shopping is just as much of a mishmash as the rides are, with the Universal store, a Betty Boop store, super silly fun stuff, it's a wrap, and the cherry on top being the main dining location, Universal Studios Monster Cafe. I kind of hate this area. It doesn't make any form of sense to me. It's just kind of like a glob of everything that they threw together. But what's everyone else's thoughts?
I had no idea it was supposed to be a backlot until you just said it.
Yeah, I looked it up because I was like, I didn't realize that was the point. Apparently everything is supposed to be a backlot, which also is pretty interesting because that doesn't give off that vibe at all. But, you know, thanks, Universal.
I will say, that opening road is nice and wide.
It is.
Yeah.
Like, they've got wide pathways, which is nice. But sometimes in Disney, you're like bottlenecked somewhere, and it's not wide enough. Their opening is nice and wide. You can just go.
It's true.
You know,
outside the gates is a problem.
Go ahead.
I think, like, if you've ever lined up for Horror Nights, like, getting into the gates in that area can be a problem. But once you're in, it's real easy to get around. If a little confusing on which way to go once you're in, depending on where you're heading to. But, yeah, it's definitely a backlot, and that's more of what it used to be. Fit that originally, because you had Hitchcock and the sound show and the Hanna-Barbera was the animation, and Nickelodeon were all up there. So it being the production area made a lot more sense at the time, but because there's nothing left of those, it really makes no sense at all now.
You know, the difference is, though, like over a Disney park, is when you walk in, there's really, like, the attractions are just right there. Like when you walk through those gates, because, you know, the Minions are right there on your left. I mean, you're there, you're in it. There's not that Main Street buildup or walking into the Oasis at Animal Kingdom or down Hollywood Boulevard. It's just right there. And it is all kind of all over the place. But, you know, I think that this park and Hollywood Studios mirror each other in how much they've changed over the years. I used to think it was really cool they had that avenue that was Nickelodeon Studios. And, you know, you had like a whole other area that's just not there now. I mean, the Nickelodeon stuff was, you know, there was some like Rugrats meet and greets, and there was the slime fountain, the geyser, and the studios, and you see a Double Dare Live type of a show. And now it's Blue Man Group. It's a separate ticket. It's like not even part of the park. It's almost like they chopped off a limb when they closed that off. And that was a place for people to go. The fact that it, you know, Colleen, you said it's like a big area. The fact it doesn't get more bottlenecked, and the fact that you got Shrek and Minions right there when you get in is kind of crazy to me that it's not worse than it is. But I guess people kind of know to like disperse when they get in there. So it is a mishmash.
It is a mishmash, but I think probably the reason that there isn't as much bottleneck there is people go immediately either to Rip Ride Rocket or they just continue going to New York. I don't really think there's many people stopping to ride Shrek 4D anymore. That ride can go die. Or be changed to something new.
Well, Ron talked about Hitchcock. Hitchcock, to me, was a really cool experience, and it really talked more to it being a studio. You know, it was, you go in and you see a 3D version of the birds, and then you walk out of there and you see how all of the effects were done from all of the Hitchcock movies. Then it made more sense. The Shrek 4D movie is nice. I mean, it's fun to do once, but the Hitchcock thing I always thought was pretty cool.
I just want to say, if we're going to talk about some of the original stuff, for anyone who wants to watch and see some of this original stuff later, there's a great like souvenir video that's online hosted by I think it's John Forsyth, and it was filmed at the very beginning of the park in, you know, like 91. Look for that when we're done talking, because it's a really great like hour or so long just history of that park and like a time capsule of what it was when it opened, including footage of all the rides and things like that.
Is it crazy? I didn't get to see Hitchcock, so.
Is it crazy to you guys how long the lines always are for Minions? And is it because of its location? Like if it was somewhere else, would the line always be that long?
It's been that for all the iterations. It's not just Minions. It's like it is because it's the first thing you hit in. Why does Spaceship Earth have a giant line? But the other problem is it's a cycle loader. So we're filling only one screen every, 7 minutes. I mean, you're getting a couple hundred people in there, but it's still, it builds up that line really quick because of that.
All right, Ron, are you the only person on here other than me that's ridden all three rides? I assume you rode Hanna-Barbera and Jimmy Neutron and Minions.
I rode all three.
I'm pretty sure I rode all three too.
So what's the best one? Because I think Jimmy Neutron was the best one.
I don't remember Hanna-Barbera really, other than it existed. Like I have a memory of like that was a thing.
Right.
But I remember Jimmy Neutron. Shannon was really into Jimmy Neutron. I remember.
I liked Hanna-Barbera. I didn't like Jimmy Neutron because I didn't like Jimmy Neutron. Like the cartoon wasn't my favorite. So like the cameos from the other cartoons were cool, but Hanna-Barbera was more my speed because I grew up watching like the Flintstones and the Jetsons and stuff with my dad. So.
Well, and I like the premise of Elroy's been taken, and that's the reason they're going through all this stuff. And it feels very much like sort of the Simpsons and Maggie, and the Simpsons ride too, that we'll, I'm sure, talk about later. But I like the Jimmy Neutron. I can still hear like his old friend Carl like counting the llamas, going a llama, a llama. I mean, just like it was such a cool little thing. The Minion thing, like I don't love Minions. I mean, I think the Despicable Me movies are okay, but I like what they did with the facade. That it makes it more of what theme parks try to do now, which is kind of try to immerse you a little bit more. There wasn't a lot of pageantry to that show building until they made it for Minions and made it look like Gru's house. So I just think I don't think this is the best iteration.
No, I think it's I think for me it would be Hanna-Barbera, Minions, and Jimmy Neutron, just for my familiarity with the properties. I didn't watch anything from that second generation of Nicktoons, so like Rugrats, Ren and Stimpy, and Doug were kind of it for me as far as Nicktoons were. So I didn't know Jimmy Neutron. I've still never seen an episode of SpongeBob. I don't know anything from that era of Nickelodeon.
What?
Oh my gosh. Crazy.
Oh, wow. Okay. And so let me ask you a question though. Production Central. So the Terminator attraction, was that considered part of Production Central when it existed?
It was Hollywood.
That's Hollywood. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's the thing too.
We'll get to that at the end.
The theming's a little unclear, like where those things. I mean, when you're at Disney, and you know, I'm sure we'll do a lot of comparisons to Disney. You know, when you go from Liberty Square to Fantasyland, you don't necessarily know when you go from one land to another here.
I was like writing, you know, like all this up earlier when I was doing my prep work for the show, and I was like watching videos and like scrubbing back and forth, and I was like, okay, so Production Central, New York, San Fran, Hollywood, all the exact same. Like it gets much more clear when you're in Islands of Adventure that you're in different areas, but Universal, as we'll kind of talk about, really hard to tell. But with that, I think we're gonna walk our little feet over to New York. So that's right after Production Central. This area kind of features old brick buildings. It's got like some cute alleyways with like some old like ladders that kind of come down. There's a makeshift subway tunnel and a full replica of the famous 30 Rockefeller Center. The section of the park provides old school New York vibes with its score in the background. Attractions in the section include Race Through New York starring Jimmy Fallon and Revenge of the Mummy. And if you're feeling a bit peckish, you can stop in Finnegan's or Louis' Italian Restaurant.
I know we're not, I guess we're not talking about shows, but like this is where the Blues Brothers happens, right?
Yeah, on like that weird alley kind of.
Okay. Yeah, let me just start by saying like Race Through New York with Jimmy Fallon, I feel like again I liked the Ghostbusters show that was here. And then, you know, the Twister thing was kind of cool. So like even though I like the Q style and how much work they put into that, the attraction to me is ride it once and you're done. Whereas I feel like those other things were kind of cool that took the place there.
Yeah, the best part
I
of the
think
Jimmy Fallon ride is the line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then we rode it, and it was like, that was just weird.
Yeah. Yep.
And
I don't remember much. I don't remember much of the ride itself. More of what I remember was, you know, the queue and moving from one room to the next, and then the gift shop afterwards. And the outside of the building looks very cool. It looks very much like, you know, like the real building. So, you know, I think it's neat that they've built that. But I think they this and when we get to Supercharge, I think they spent a lot of money on both of these, and I don't think the payoff was there for either.
I have not done Fallon. I didn't love Twister. Ghostbusters was fantastic, but it's still sad to see that go. I think that could have been updated. I think the effects would still hold up, and I think people still know the property, but
yeah.
Yeah, that's
it's just getting the reboot too. That's a great way to bring it back right now.
Well, but not only do they lose the property of Ghostbusters, but Revenge of the Mummy, which, by the way, is one of the big selling points for me about the Studios park. I love this. I love this roller coaster. I mean, I think it feels more like a Disney attraction than most of the other attractions do because it has animatronics and fire and, you know, the twists and things in it. So, I mean, this is a must-do for me every time I go because I do like this attraction. But the Confrontation attraction that was there was an attraction like we'll never probably see again. Like, and I don't know, again, if you guys ever did this one, but the cable car running through and the giant animatronic Kong, that was a huge memory for me as a kid. I loved that attraction because you didn't know what was happening when you got in there and you got in the cable car and you heard that Kong was somewhere in New York. And I mean, that was a shame to me. Like I feel the same way about this that I do like Great Movie Ride. I wish I could have kept this and then built Mummy somewhere else so that you could have both. But I think we were hearing that there were a lot of like technical issues with that attraction, but it was a very impressive attraction, and it was one that was a marquee for them. So I'm sad to see that one go, but I do like the Mummy.
I remember.
I never got to do.
And Twister.
I never got to do it.
That's like when we were going was like when those were open. Shannon hated Twister so much that like when she started creating accounts for things, my mom would make her password Twister. She's like, you'll never forget it. And then she and her roommate really wanted to buy the cow, which was like on sale in a store, and she kept trying to convince our parents to buy her the Twister cow.
How old was she?
When Twister was when did Twister close?
A few years ago.
Yeah, not too long ago.
I mean, Shannon's 25.
So 3-4 years ago, I think.
I thought you meant this was like a young thing.
Going on as a kid, and it was like, this is scary.
It was intense. It was intense. So I mean, if she was younger, I totally get that, because you would not know what was happening or if you were safe. I think it was. I mean, I think it was well done.
I didn't write it until I was an adult. Okay, yeah. There you go.
When did it open?
It was announced in 97. I don't have the date in front of me. Give me just a half a second. It opened in 98, so it was 98 to 07.
Okay.
Or 98 to 15, sorry.
I don't want to say age well, so I probably wrote it the year that it closed for the first time ever. And I just, like, the only thing I really remember is, like, when it, like, dropped down, and I was just like, this is just sad, and, like, it's a weird attraction. The queue was great. But I think other than that, I was like, okay, I'm good. I did it. Let's move on.
Yeah.
So I just want to tell a story about Kong.
New York. Did anyone
this
know
is
what was the Twister connection there?
What?
Oh, I
was going to say probably just because it was an open building. I don't feel like they gave that much attention to theming. I think it was just like why Shrek in the production area. I mean, they kind of put turrets on it and made it look that way too. Why Minions right there? I think it's just because they had an available building. And I think that with Harry Potter was the first time they actually stopped doing that. And you talked about islands and that kind of thing too. But I think it's just because it was an available building. I don't know why it made any sense to be in New York. But Ron, you were going to say something about confrontation?
Well, Shrek went in there because there were the building was already split into 2 theaters. One of them, which was already set up for 3D.
Gotcha.
So that's probably why that went there. But this is a story I always heard from confrontation. I heard firsthand accounts of this. So believe what you will, but this kind of goes like George at Pirates. That building, the Kong building, was haunted as well.
Cool! I love it more now.
Supposedly, at the second Kong, when he's attacking the helicopter or that scene, a maintenance guy fell, because that's about 30, 40 feet up. So apparently a maintenance guy fell there. And the story I heard from people who worked that ride who saw this, late at night or when there wasn't busy, they'd still have to cycle cars. So they'd send through empty cars. I knew some of the girls I knew would not take an empty car through there, because if you went through that scene, and that's where they film, and then they show the little recap video, there was always one shadow figure sitting in the back seat right in that scene.
I love it.
And I heard that from multiple people who worked on that ride.
And there are two Kong like hidden things in the attraction now. One is in the treasure room. There's the Kong, like the King Kong's like golden statue on the left, and the other one is that if you look through, you can still see the tracks from on the ceiling because of how big these cars were. They had to build that into the building, so you can still see the tracks that the train cars or the cable cars would take.
Is there a good place to look for that? Because I feel like every time I write it, I'm like, I'm going to look. And then I'm like, ooh, Mummy. And then I never look. So maybe next time.
You know what? I feel like maybe near the beginning there are some places where you can see it.
Okay, good to know. Oh, someone in chat, was that a real ghost story or an effect? No, that was
a real story.
Real. There you go.
My friend Mick she like turned white talking about it.
I love that. I hope he's still there.
Supposedly, when they were building it, it was when I was working there, when they were building Mummy, and there was an electrical fire that shut down construction for a few days over there, and it was supposedly right in that same spot.
Wow. I like it.
The fire was real. I don't know if it was right in that spot, but...
Can we talk a second? Because I think I let that go in the last section about food. I don't think there are as many options. I guess I don't feel like the food is as good at Universal in general as it is at Disney. But I do like the monster. Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I guess you have all those places at City Walk that are, there are some nice places there. But I do, I think, we usually like going to that the Monster Cafe and also Louis Italian. We've eaten it a couple times just because there's nothing like. I mean, it's just basic Italian food. But
is it Tony's or is it better?
No, it's not. I mean, it's walk up. I mean, it's counter service. Italian. Yeah, it's counter service Italian. It's more Pizzafari-ish than it is Tony's. I mean, I do like. I mean, when we talk about Harry Potter, there is some stuff that's a little bit cooler, but just the regular Universal food, I've always been more than a little disappointed in.
Only in the last few years has I think it even caught up to in most places being edible. The Potter food I enjoy. I think Fast Food Boulevard's good, but like anything else, I would just walk out to City Walk. I think for years, whenever we were there, before any of this stuff was built, the newer stuff was built, we would just go to Hard Rock every time.
Yeah.
I can't honestly
our
think
tradition.
of an in-park restaurant that I've eaten at in the last 10 years that wasn't the Leaky Cauldron or the Three Broomsticks. Because
why would you?
Or Toothsomes is cool.
Yeah. I went to the in-park Universal Starbucks at the corner of New York and San Fran because they never checked your employee ID. So Universal team members out there, if you went to Starbucks and you showed your badge, you got a 20% discount or whatever. My badge looked different than their badge. It had a red tag at the bottom, but they never checked. So I always got the 20% off. So every day I got Starbucks there.
Cool.
That's my experience with eating inside Universal and Islands of Adventure. That was it, Starbucks. That's how I stayed alive.
Again, I mean, there are things at Disney that I would go out of my way to go to the parks to eat, and especially when we talk about festivals and things like that. Some really nice restaurants and some really good counter service restaurants. But yeah, just in general, this is a place where they seem to have missed the mark. Although I do think that their refillable mugs program that they have there is a pretty good deal, and that and that you can do freestyle all the way through the park and add icy to that. And I mean, that to me is kind of cool. And it is a process when you stop and they have to fill up yours and 18 other people's cups. But it'll be interesting to see post-COVID how they deal with that, handing cups back and forth. But I don't know that other than that, and then maybe say the Big Donut at Simpsons, there really are anything that I think they do better or as good as Disney on food.
I will say, and the chat's been talking about this, is the food at the hotels and City Walk is a completely different story. I've heard good. Every restaurant I've been to at City Walk's been good. The ones I haven't been to, I've heard are good. And even their counter service there is at least mall level, food court. It's Panda Express and Burger King. At least you know what you're getting when you go to those places. But the in-park food, Monsters, I've never liked. The Islands of Adventure food was universally horrible. Mythos was the only edible thing there until Potter opened, I'd say.
I see what you did there. Universally horrible.
But
I got you.
All right, we're gonna keep talking about horrible areas and trade the East Coast for the West Coast and head into the San Francisco area. I will say I've always liked the section of the park, like to take a rest spot or to like people watch because they've got a bunch of benches that overlook the lagoon. But other than that, this area holds Fast and Furious Supercharged, so it's terrible. They've destroyed everything good in this area. There are a couple places to eat, including Lombard Seafood Grill and Richard's Burger Company, which are still tied to the disaster and earthquake kind of eras. Now that they've added Fast and Furious, this whole area doesn't really make any sense. Yeah, I'm just going to turn this over to you guys. I will say that the music in this area also is like watching walkthroughs or whatever. You start out and it's kind of like regular area theme music, and then it switches to like a Spanish mix. They don't know what they're doing here, and it drives me crazy. Rant
I
over.
liked Earthquake.
And this is where I used to work. I worked Earthquake during its second iteration, The Magic of Effects. And to lose any iteration of Earthquake and Beetlejuice Graveyard Review for one of the absolute worst attractions in Orlando.
Beetlejuice is so bad.
It's just so bad. Like, I don't hate the movies. I don't love them. But it's the problem when you take a scene on a tram tour where this might not be bad or might not be horrible because it's one part of a hour-long attraction. Might not be horrible because to make it something you have to queue for specifically, and you're in a vehicle designed for it, they could have done something better. Like, it is a thrilling franchise. There's a lot they could have done with it, but you're on a bus.
Party bus.
Yeah, you gotta turn off your phones, man. They could track you.
But you know what? There was, I thought I had heard rumor that there was actually going to be like a coaster here at some point. So the fact that it is a Kong knockoff. I mean, it is exactly the same ride system as King Kong.
Well, that's because it's just they're both originally on the tram
tour in California. Yeah. No, and that's true. And as both of those attractions, and I'm sure we'll talk about Kong, is they're great additions to the tram tour, but to have them be standalone rides does seem unnecessary. And actually, I kind of liked the Earthquake ride that was there before. And then I guess it was called Earthquake, and it was called Disaster, but it was the same attraction where it was like Catastrophe Canyon. They drove you in and things happened around you and crashed and flooded, and they drove you out and pretended like you were in a scene. That was much better to me than this.
And it was all practical effect.
Yeah.
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 It was cool. I mean, that was what we would ride that like every time we went, because it was cool to be in this subway car and all these practical effects, affecting your environment and all these disasters.
But I mean, the acting too is so bad, and I know that's not why you watch a Fast and Furious movie, but it's like the whole family forever thing. I mean, I'm just like, what? Just like, it's insulting almost. And again, as part of the tram tour, it was kind of cute in California because I've done that one, but this one, it just seemed. It's disappointing. It's kind of like I feel like they're wasting a building there. And to all the people, I wasn't a huge fan of the Beetlejuice show. I know a lot of people were. I just didn't see it. I don't know. I never got a chance to go to that. But that had to go away, and Disaster had to go away for us to have this disaster.
It is a disaster. I mean, there's a point where like Vin Diesel like holds on to like a helicopter and then just like flies, and I'm like, but that's not a thing. Even in Fast and Furious, I don't think that's a thing. So bad.
Yeah.
If you haven't done it, do it during Halloween Horror Nights. There's literally no wait. Don't spend your time in the park.
Don't have to sit through the queue.
Yeah, although I will give the ride this. I like walking through that queue. I have seen the movies. So looking at those cars, my dad and I were kind of geeking out, and I do think it is kind of nicely done, the ambiance or whatever, but like, yeah.
When you have to go through the full queue and pre-show, I will say that I think that the queue and pre-show are better than the ride itself is.
Oof.
No?
That's rough. I mean, to say that it's better than a ride, I think is sad. Like, your pre-show shouldn't be better than the ride.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and you know this area, that's all that's there now. I mean, you know, and Halloween Horror Nights, when they had the, you know, the scare zone, at least there was something there now when you go through there. But this is just basically a few gift shops and a couple, you know, walk-up restaurants, and I mean, it's a saddle area, whereas it really was part of, you know, extended by Jaws. Jaws was part of that before, you know, the Wizarding World took over. So when you had Jaws there and Disaster and the Beetlejuice show, you know, now you had something, right? So it makes this, it feels like this shouldn't be its own section, but I don't know what else you would include with it.
Well, yeah, so that's kind of what I was thinking too when you said that, like, it's literally just one long walkway now with one attraction. Like, it really isn't even its own thing anymore. That's a really good point. Yeah. So now what would you do to it?
I mean, honestly, I think that the move would be to extend Potter. I mean, that to me would be the right thing to do to exist. Because it's right. I know Colleen's probably like, this is just in my way to get to Diagon Alley, right? I just think that if they could, that extending Potter or even something maybe London themed to give give even more illusion to that area, that this is, you know, that this is part of London and you're really kind of sneaking into Diagon Alley. But that's what I would do, and that's where the money is. So I feel like that would be what you would do with this. But this ride is too new that I can't imagine they'll even consider that. They'll consider the stunt show area where they have Fear Factor Live. They'll consider that for expansion before they'll consider this area, because this is fresh. But I think long term, that's what they need to do with this area, because there's no other reason to be there, I don't think. And everything else could be rethemed.
Some other property that took place in London that you did something with, and then it was London. So you're like, you're in London. Here's some other movie that takes place in London, but it's London themed. Because then you hit King's Cross, and then you hit Diagon Alley, and it's like, we're in London. To extend it even in that way.
Get the James Bond rights.
Yeah.
That'd be sweet.
Well, and since this thing is all screens, you could kind of retheme it to James Bond if you wanted to, if you got those rights, because it is basically all screens. I mean, that's why this ride works in Hollywood, is that they can, you know, retheme it to something else very quickly, because it's just your tram riding, you know, with images around you. So they could use the existing building and the existing ride system and just retheme it to something like Bond. But, you know, with Bourne coming, I don't think they would do two of those kind of things together. But.
Yeah. But what you were saying about expanding onto the stunt show, that was the rumor for years, is that was going to be the Ministry of Magic extension.
Right.
Supposedly that got put off the table when Epic Universe started being developed. And so, because they want to have another Potter land there. So they're looking at that, was the last I remember hearing. Who knows how true any of that is, but supposedly that's why Bill and Ted went down when it was, because that was all going to happen there, and they wanted that space for it.
I honestly think that's kind of dumb, because I think that the fact that I thought it was dumb when they connected the two Potter lands, you know, in two different parks, because it's kind of mean. It's kind of like if you don't know theme parks like we do, and you go and you're like, oh, I want to get on this ride. They're like, great. Do you have a park hopper? No. Ooh, okay. Well, come buy one. I mean, like, if you don't know what you're doing, that could be devastating to have, especially with a family of four, to lay down that much more money.
It's brilliant, like, money-wise.
Oh, it's mean, but it's still mean.
It's mean, but it's brilliant, because if you are, like, you're about to go and it's like you don't have a ticket, if you have kids, you got to buy that ticket now.
There's a guy that I work with, you're right, whose son is autistic. And they had him all hyped up, and he was going to get on that. And you can't say no at that point. You have to do it. But it was very, the very first time I saw that, I thought, well, that can't be right. They can't be doing it that way. So to think about them having another Potter section in Epic Universe, unless it's Fantastic Beasts, which would make sense. I think that, like, they should keep the Potter stuff there. I mean, I'm sure that that's on the table, because that's where they make their money. But I wish they would keep them all in that park and just kind of keep building and expanding that way.
The issue with Universal is space. Like, there was no space unless you wanted to get rid of Seuss or Jurassic Park. No space to build more Harry Potter and Islands of Adventure. So it was like, well, what do we do? Well, we figured out this way to connect them and convince people they have to buy park hoppers.
I suggested this, and Universal had the money for it. When they bought that new land, they should have approached the Dr. Phillips people and says, look, we will build you a state-of-the-art school if you move and give us that land. And I think if they could have probably convinced them, like, we will build everything from scratch, top-notch right now, because that land is more valuable to us. For people who don't know, it's right behind the parks. So,
yeah.
That would have
actually,
been
the Hess station gone.
they actually used that for filming, or like used to when they used to do actual filming stuff there, because like Superboy was filmed at Dr. Phillips High School. So you're right, though. That would have been amazing to go and say, hey, we're going to build you something cooler on this land we built, and then just expand out that way. They could have expanded the studios or the islands and Volcano Bay. But again,
or built a Volcano Bay over there. I mean,
Volcano Bay seems to me to be a waste of space. And again, we're not talking about that yet, or if we're going to be talking about that. But if you wanted to expand, it seems like they could have done something there, take the Wet and Wild land that they had purchased, and instead of making more hotels over there, just revamp that whole thing to be Volcano Bay over there. That seems to me like it would have made more sense, and then just expand the two parks they have.
Well, when they bought Wet and Wild, I had assumed it was just going to stay a water park, and they were just going to, add their technology or whatever, and then, Volcano became what it is. And I was just very surprised that they're like, we're going to put hotels here, where now it's like you have to take a bus, and it's not in walking distance, which was kind of their, universal thing with the hotels, but I don't know.
Well, and now picture how far that bus is going to have to take you to go to Epic Universe.
Yeah.
Like that seems to be, I mean, I don't know. It'll work out. We'll all go, but it just seems like it was poorly thought out. But to Colleen's point, they are landlocked. They don't have much more space there where those things are.
And supposedly there was a patent. I haven't read it, but the discussion was of a gondola system that could dock buses onto it to move the people down to Epic Universe. Like, think of how the Rise of the Resistance vehicles could go into different, lock into the drop shaft thing. They want to do that with a gondola and a bus, was my understanding of these patents that just got filed in the last week or so.
Wow. That's crazy.
I'm curious, just because we're kind of talking about this now, with Epic Universe, are you going to be able to get people to park hop in the same way? Because I'll go to Epic Universe, I mean, especially if it has Fantastic Beasts in it, but I'm just going to that then. I'm just going to drive, park there, do that, and leave.
I don't know. I mean,
we've seen How to Train Your Dragon, Nintendo Land, Universal Monsters.
It's not much further than if you were going from Magic Kingdom to Animal Kingdom, though, as far as park hopping. Universal park hopping now is great because you go across from one to the other. But, I mean, distance-wise, I don't think it's much further than Magic Kingdom to Animal Kingdom. So,
but I don't drive from Magic Kingdom to Animal Kingdom because I'm lazy. I'm going to one of those and I'm staying there.
But if you had a limited amount of time, you wouldn't take a bus? If there was one provided?
No, I take buses. I guess it's more that I don't drive on property, and that's more the thing. If I can take a bus, then it's fine.
What makes it seem further away, though, is that it's not on property for them. At Disney, it's on property. You're still driving on Disney property. It all matches and everything's great, but you're going to pass gas stations and Taco Bells and other things as you're driving from one to the other, unless maybe not. Maybe they'll set up their own corridor, but I assume they'll use the existing road systems and just bus you over there. But it will feel very different, and I guess it'll feel further away. But we think about park hopping, and it doesn't seem like a big deal to go from Magic Kingdom to Hollywood Studios or to Animal Kingdom in the same day if you want to do two of them. But versus if you're in California and you're to Disneyland and you can go literally just like you can at Universal across, the promenade from one park to another, then our system looks like a real pain in the butt.
That's true. All right, and to move us along, because now it's time for Colleen to have her moment.
Yay!
I know. We are gonna go into the Wizarding World of Harry Potter Diagon Alley slash Nocturne Alley. I don't like that they don't acknowledge that Nocturne Alley is there because it most definitely is. This area of the park, just real quick on my end, I got to watch it be built when I was in school. I very vividly remember the day that they added the Dragon to Gringotts. I remember going in the park multiple times a day during soft openings because we were like, is it open? Can we go in? And then we would ride Gringotts and then we'd be very happy. So Diagon Alley is really, really special to me. Of course, in this land, you have Harry Potter and Escape from Gringotts. You can hop on the Hogwarts Express like we talked about earlier through King's Cross and platform 9 3/4. Inside, you can visit Weasley Wizard Wheezes, Ollivanders, Borgin and Burkes, to name a few, and eat at Leaky Cauldron or Florin Fortescue's. All right, I'm going to start with Colleen. Take it. Have fun.
So, the first time that I went to Diagon Alley, we actually went during a Harry Potter convention. So it was hundreds of people in their Harry Potter robes going to the Harry Potter area. You could tell the cast members were into it because they were calling us wizards and everyone else was a muggle, and they're like, oh my god, all those muggles, right? And it was awesome. We were very excited. It was very awesome. I had a friend who played the night bus conductor, and I was able to see him, and that was cool. And he acted, and it was fun. You could tell, like, you know, other people around me because he knew my name, so it was like he read my mind. This really defied my expectations in many ways. Like, Hogsmeade is great, but they took like what they learned from Hogsmeade and then went into Diagon Alley and made the walkways bigger. And you know, I didn't expect that area where you walked up and there's the night bus and it's very London looking. You know, the London shop fronts, the train station, and then, you know, being able to kind of go through a wall and you're in Diagon Alley, and it's a great reveal. You know, here is this place, and it looks just like what the movie looks like. It looks like you walk into the Diagon Alley from the films. And they had people from the films work on it. And Mina Lima, who I love, and they do like the graphic designs and stuff, you know, they design the things to paint on the walls. You know, the dragon breathing fire is cool, although it really clogs up the walkway as people just stand there with their camera waiting for the dragon to breathe fire. So I could kind of do without that because it's in the way.
Can I fan rant for a second about the dragon?
Sure.
Yes.
It makes no sense story-wise. Like, they went so into this. The plan the dragon would be on there, Diagon Alley's closed for business, basically. It's one point in one movie where no one's there. Sorry, just bugs me.
No, absolutely.
And
they were just like, oh, what if we put a dragon on top? Well, the dragon ties into the ride. Like, the point in time at which you're on the Gringotts ride is the point in time in which the dragon escapes. And so, okay, the dragon's on the top of the building. We wanted something that breathes fire.
Yeah.
Fine.
And it's expensive too, by the way. I have a friend who worked there who was saying it, and I can't say that this is actual, but she said that every time that it would go off, it's thousands of dollars to do, and it's supposed to go off every 15 minutes because you've got somebody who runs it, and you've got, you know, like it's got to be right because you're playing with fire. So I mean, it's an expensive thing for them to do, and sometimes it doesn't work, and that's disappointing. But I mean, it definitely is that marquee thing in Diagon Alley that makes it stand out.
Yeah,
so it is unnecessary,
cool moment.
But it's cool.
It's unnecessary and clogs up that walkway, which yes is wider and is great. So I can get around those people who are just standing with their cameras waiting. But I'm like,
What? Well, I have a question for you, though, Colleen. Somebody even asked this in the chat. You said you don't have a wand?
Oh, no, I have like 6 wands.
Alicia said she didn't have a wand.
Alicia.
We have it's in the closet, but we do have one.
Yeah, I have like 6 wands. I haven't finished unpacking my house. We haven't lived in Florida that long, and so they're in a box somewhere.
Okay.
Like, I have like a Harry Potter shrine, to be real. So there's like a box labeled Harry Potter, you know, Hedwig's in there. I have like a display for my wands and stuff. Yeah.
Shannon says she has more than 6.
Shannon has at least like 3 Ollivanders wands. Shannon's been to the studio tour in England, and she got a free wand because Shannon worked for MuggleNet. MuggleNet like gifted everyone wands for Christmas one time. She's got a lot of wands, it's true. I really distinctly remember Shannon was picked for the Ollivander show. Originally in Hogsmeade, and so like she was the youngest person in the group. Like she was still a teenager, but definitely the youngest person in the room. And you know, she was like, "We have to get this wand, Mom and Dad." And they're like, "But you have a wand." And she's like, "But not this one." And when they were like taking it to the counter, they tried to like brush the dust off the box, and she's like, "What are you doing? That's Ollivander's dust." It was really.
She just said she just counted and she has 12.
Okay, I believe it. That does. Shannon and I have wands from like conventions and stuff that aren't from, you know, the parks. Anyways,
can I tell can I jump into something real quick about Ollivanders though?
Mm-hmm.
Like to your point, and something we talked about with the train and how that's kind of a trick thing is that when you get that person in Ollivanders that is the volunteer and the wand chooses them, I feel like then there's a chance they don't know they're going to have to pay for that wand.
I've been chosen, so like they don't give you the wand. The wand is given to like an assistant who then you go out of the room with them, and they say like, the wand costs this much money, do you want to buy it? So like it's not clear in that moment, but they don't like let you take it. You go out of the room with someone else, they explain it to you, so it's not like you have it and they're like, I'm gonna keep it. The one time I was chosen, I think it was it that event that we went to or another event? I don't know. I was chosen for the Ollivander show at like 2 a.m. So at this point, it's just Harry Potter nerds in robes. And everyone's camera and phone has died, so there's no photographic evidence that this happened.
Oh no.
And it's all like young teens to like adults in this room. You know, there's no kids. And so they come down the stairs and they're like, what is your name? Not to me, to this other girl who's dressed as Harry Potter. And she says, I'm Harry Potter. She's very proud of herself. And the wand maker's like, are you sure? She's like, yes, I'm Harry Potter. And they're like, okay, and just walk by her. And then they picked me, and I was like, this is my life. And we do the whole thing. And I had already bought a wand that night. And I'm like, okay, so as long as it's not the snake or the skeleton, I'll just return that one wand, and I'll buy this wand. So I'm pretty sure I got the snake. And, you know, when I walked out with the guy, and he's like, do you want to buy the wand? I'm like, no. He's like, really?
Aww.
And I'm like, I bought one. And he's like, you don't want this one? And I'm like, it has a snake on it. And he's like, yeah. Which I'm like, you must get that. Like, that must happen that people are like, I don't want this snake or skeleton wand. Anyways, Diagon Alley is beautiful. I love, you know, they have the multiple storefronts, even when there's only one store behind it. You really get to see all the stores that they've talked about, you know, the additions of things. So, you know, Diagon Alley is a road. You know, this is Diagon Alley. But J.K. Rowling, you know, because they asked her about things, and it's like she had these other roads in her mind, like Horizont Alley and Carket Market, which is where you watch the show. And so even just those little additions to things, that's not in the movies or in the books. But she's like, oh, yeah, there's a market next door named Carket Market. And it's like, cool, we'll put a show there.
Okay.
And it's beautifully decorated. And inside the stores is beautifully decorated. You know, you go inside Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, and it's like, this is what it looks like. I think in the movie it's actually bigger. But you're like, this is it. This, we're in the place, and these are the things. And you can go to the ice cream parlor, which you never see in the movies, but you hear, like, oh, an ice cream parlor exists. And, you know, so here it is. And you can watch the shows, which are, you know, fun. And again, it ties into a lot of, like, characters you hear of, you know, things you hear of in the books, the movies, but, like, you never meet Celestina Warbeck. But you can watch her sing, and that's cool. The interactive wand thing is really fun. You know, and it's nice they have people wandering around to help you, specifically kids, but also adults, to help if like you're not getting it. Like they'll teach you this is the wand movement, which sometimes they have to help adults because as an adult you need to stand farther back from like the thing on the ground, and you know we're all very excited and we're like, and it's like, no, just move your wrist. This is made for children. You're too big. You need to smaller motions. So like we always eat at the Leaky Cauldron. I like fish and chips a lot, so like we get fish and chips. I have had the shepherd's pie and I enjoyed that as well, but like I eat fish and chips every time we go. And I love, you know, there's stairways that lead to nowhere. There look like there are other streets that like end and you can't go down, but so it looks like it's bigger and there's more. And there's all these shops. And then you go into Nocturne Alley and it's nighttime. You know, you suddenly go in and it's dark and it's spooky, and you go in Borgin and Burke's and there's the vanishing cabinet and you can hear the bird in it. And that's amazing. And it's all those little things that tie into the films, into the books, that it's like, I can hear the bird in this. People think I'm nuts. You can tell when I'm walking to the store and go put my ear against a cabinet and they're looking at me like, what's this girl doing? And the Ollivanders, which started in the other, you know, park, but now they have a lot more space and can do multiple shows at once, which is really nice. You know, that's a really cool experience. I actually think adults enjoy it more than kids do, because I think sometimes they're picking kids who are like, I don't know what this is. I saw them pick a kid once who did not speak English, but his parents thought this was hilarious. So they were like, yeah, just go. They thought it was real funny because he was like, I don't know what this man is saying to me. I mean, the theming of Diagon Alley is incredible. Like, it is like you walked into these films, and it's amazing. And like I said before, you know, Shannon and I will go to Universal, and we will spend an entire day just in Diagon Alley and Hogsmeade, because like that's it. I'll just sit there and gaze at it in wonder, because it's cool. And, you know, every time I go, I want to buy things, and I get in trouble. I have a complete uniform. I have robes. I have the tie. I have the cardigan. The hat. This hat is not from Universal, but it is Harry Potter. You know, you can go talk to a goblin. Like, there's that part where you can go talk to a goblin and he'll talk to you about money. Like, and the goblins so like moving on to the rides, so like the Gringotts ride, you know, you get to walk through the lobby, and like that's really cool. And the goblins are moving around, and that's beautiful. The part where you're outside is kind of boring, but whatever. I waited in line for like 4 hours to ride this ride the first time, because, you know, it was right after. And as someone who, like, I'm not like a big like roller coaster thrill ride person, like the Forbidden Journey I get motion sick on and can't do. I have done it, but I cannot do it anymore. But I can ride Gringotts, although it was really funny. So like in Forbidden Journey, there's a part with spiders. Shannon's terrified of spiders. Shannon has no idea what happens in like half of Forbidden Journey, because we hit spiders and she closes her eyes and just waits a while and eventually opens them. But so like she
said in chat you were scared of snakes, though.
So I'm scared of snakes. So we get on the Gringotts ride for the first time, and it's like the first room you go in, and suddenly Nagini comes in, and I'm like, oh my god! And Shannon's like patting me on the arm, and she's like, it's okay, sissy, it's not real. Shannon is my younger sister, and she's like, it's okay, I'm like, just tell me when it's gone. And she's like, okay, the snake's gone now. It was very cute of her, and it was very, Shannon is autistic, and so when Shannon is aware that other people feel things, it's very cool. And I'm like, oh, she loves me. But it's a fun ride, you know, it's a fun roller coaster. It does, you know, utilize screens like things utilize screens. now. And I don't like being in the back where you kind of are half standing because I find that awkward.
I really wish, like, I like Gringotts, and before we started filming this, we were all kind of debating the two, and I do like Forbidden Journey more, but I wish Gringotts use a little bit more physical sets, because I feel like when they do utilize physical sets, it's like a rock wall, and then so you're like flipping around or whatever, and then it's like this really cool like kind of cave portion, and then you're back to a screen, or it's like you're about to go down the drop, and it's like you vanish underneath the screen. Like they feel like they could have done more, which is like my only gripe with it. Other than that, like the queue is gorgeous, the animatronic goblins are insane. So that's like kind of my only thing. But
that actor,
I have a couple questions though. So do you think it's weird that they don't have any meet and greet in the Harry Potter stuff? Because it doesn't seem to make sense, because they would have to look exactly like Harry Potter. Like when we saw Star-Lord and Groot, that guy could not have looked less like Star-Lord, and he should have had his mask on, because that would have made it a little bit better. Yeah, and so I was just calling him Star-Lord Steve, because he certainly didn't look like Peter Quill. But then, so I get that there wouldn't be those opportunities necessarily, but you would think they would have found something that you could do that with, but maybe it's more realistic that way.
At Diagon Alley, out in front, you can meet the conductor for the night bus, and you can meet the train conductor in Hogsmeade.
Yeah.
And I think this works in a way, because you can meet somebody, but they're not things that create like intense lines where you would need to have like some permanent queue set up. It's like, oh, I'll wait over here and meet the bus conductor or the train conductor, that's fun. But, it is very, you've walked in and it's very story heavy, in a way that's better than Galaxy's Edge. And, you're in the wizarding world. So in some ways it's like, well, it wouldn't really make sense. You could stand in line to meet Celestina Warbeck. That would make sense, because she's famous.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, half the characters from Harry Potter are dead. And then it's like, well, in what time, then you get into like, they're not really narrowing down, like, it's at this time this is happening. Gringotts happens at a very specific time. But other than that, it's like, so people could be adults, they could be kids. Like, where are you in the books? You don't want to ruin anything. Where are you in the movies? You can sometimes take pictures with the Boobatons girls and the Durmstrang guys and Hogsmeade and like the Frog Choir. So there's like people you can take pictures with, but I've never been there and been like, man, I want to meet a character.
Yeah. Okay.
I would say I don't want to meet a character. I will say real quick, now that they have the Jurassic Park like raptor encounter, they've proven that they can do kind of like half animatronic kind of puppeteering. I'm not entirely sure how it's done, but that seems to go over really well. So maybe it'd be cool if you could meet like some form of creature that Hagrid has in that vein. But other than that, I don't think face characters would work well in this area.
Like a Buckbeak situation?
If I could meet Buckbeak, I think I would cry. Like, that would be amazing.
Yeah. So then here's the second question is...
That would be better than Flight of
like,
right.
Do you feel like they should have had some sort of sorting into houses opportunity in one of these lands?
No. Because people either sort themselves or take the Pottermore test. And people are really passionate about what house they're in. Especially if you've been a fan since before there was some quiz written by J.K. Rowling to sort you. Right. And you don't want to take the risk that someone's going to get sorted into a house and then be really mad.
My daughter actually took the test and it came back Slytherin, and when she was little, and she was devastated, and so she took it again until she became Hufflepuff, and then she went all Hufflepuff when we went to Wizarding World. But yeah, I guess I just think that they've done so much with Diagon Alley that is very well themed, and a lot of it feels very Disney. Like that they learn things from Disney, and then in response to that, Disney looks like they learn things from them. Like the whole, will you sign this for the ministry when you're, writing, signing your credit card slip is very similar to, them saying, bright suns. I mean, it's like using that languaging and keeping the land clear of things that are not universal, and making sure that there are not Coca-Cola products inside the Leaky Cauldron and all that stuff that they also do at Galaxy's Edge. So I feel like they each learn from each other.
How you're going to pay. Will you be using galleons or Muggle plastic?
I never caught that.
In response to that, though, like the wand thing, the interactive wands, which, by the way, the very first time we went, we bought a wand, and it was before the interactive. So we have a wand that's not interactive, and then we had to go back and get interactive. Yes, so,
that's but I have 3.
Exactly. So then the fact that that's very similar
I don't think the interactive
to
ones look as nice.
Oh, probably not. But the same thing with like the Agent P World Showcase Adventure, or Kim Possible before that, or Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom. Like that feels like it was the beginning of, hey, yeah, we can use that technology to do what we're going to do in Diagon Alley. And to that point, I'm a little surprised there's not more of that in Galaxy's Edge. There is the stuff you can do in the app and scan things, but there's not really something in Galaxy's Edge that you can do something and have it react in a certain way. I mean, you know, maybe the water fountain. I mean, but there's not a lot of that, which I feel like that with the Force and lightsabers and all that stuff, they really missed the opportunity, and it makes this a much more dynamic area when you're in Diagon Alley, that there's all these people who are practicing their, you know, their wand spells and things like that. So I feel like that's a place that Disney really missed out on.
And
but
it's
other
all
than
practical, like those things
yes.
you do with the wands, they're practical effects. Water shoots out at you. A curtain opens and puppet stands. It rains. Lights come on. This dress transforms. Like, it's all physical things happening. It's not a screen. You know, a box opens and a book comes out. And yeah, the book is a screen because they have to move. But, you know, stuff happens and it's all three-dimensional, and that's always really cool. And it's cool to watch kids react, because they're like, wow, I did magic.
Yeah, it is very neat. It's a neat thing. Like I said, I feel like Disney missed the bus when they missed the boat on that one, when they didn't do that in Galaxy's Edge. I really like Gringotts. I mean, we were talking about it beforehand. I like that ride. I actually prefer it because I can take in more, and even though it's very screen based, I can see more of what's going on. You know, in Forbidden Journey, they kind of push you into what they want you to see, and it moves very quickly, and it's fun, and I like it. But between the two, I think they're both great, that they're different, that they didn't do the same attraction on both sides. But I do feel like I like Gringotts more. I like the pre-shows. I hate that you have to walk up those steps, but other than that, I do like the that attraction. I think it's a lot of fun, and I feel like it's got re-rideability.
That is true.
I like
Gringotts, you got to go up and down stairs and levels a lot. You are kind of like, why?
I feel like I like Forbidden Journey
back upstairs.
It's true. I feel like I like Forbidden Journey more, but I like Diagon Alley more as a land.
Yeah.
Especially like
yeah.
It was weird as it is, like the outside, like when you get to see the Night Plus, I'm like, I will stand there for as long as it takes to see Creature Point like poke out of like the window in the house, because I think that that's so cool, and that's such a nice little touch. It's just like going to Diagon Alley or Nocturne Alley, and you know, seeing all of that, like it's that little stuff to me that really makes it.
And Nocturne Alley is not obvious, and so it's really cool. You feel like the first time you find it that you found something when you go there. And, you know, again, to something Colleen said earlier, in general, the reveal as you come in is breathtaking. I mean, it is perfect. They nail that point of view on that. So those two things, I love standing outside and seeing people's like watching people come in and seeing their reactions as that happen. But I also think it's cool that Nocturne Alley is not crowded, because not everyone knows what that is.
And it's
when we first found it, like, well, that's what I was about to say. Like when we first found it, like my mind was blown, because we didn't know when this was being built that Nocturne was going to be there. So we're like exploring the land and stuff, and like you go in and we're like, the temperature's dropping. That's really weird. The music is changing. It's getting darker. There are posters on the walls that are changing. And then you walk in and you're like, this is amazing. Like, I was just like, that's my favorite part of Diagon Alley. And maybe it's because I do lean more towards like the darker wizard side. So like you go in Morgan and Burke's and they've got like, you know, like the symbol, like the Death Eater mark, and I'm like, this is my store. But
yeah. Well, you brought up Grimald Place. Like, I didn't even think about that. You know, that was a cool addition of like, well, we have to have more facade. Well, we'll put this. And I didn't even, you know, you didn't know Creature was going to pop out of the window. And if you're getting your picture taken, you don't see that. This actually, it brings up something that I've thought about a lot of times, is there's no one taking your picture. That seems like a great missed opportunity from Universal, especially in the Harry Potter section, because you could have someone taking pictures in front of Grimald Place. You could have someone taking pictures of you in front of the night bus at literally any spot inside Diagon Alley. And it's like, you could be making money off photos here, people.
it is nice though, because it doesn't clog up.
That might be
like,
a function.
You know, the passes at Disney. What were you saying, Ron?
That might be a function because they use like a third-party company for their PhotoPass equivalent. So they might not want to do that, like have them out there doing that.
That's true.
Because what really makes this land is the team members are fantastic everywhere in this land. They are so into it.
Yeah.
And that matters. It really does.
Yeah.
Like, I think, you know, you probably wouldn't go audition for this unless you were a Harry Potter fan. So, you know, you're into it and you're like, I want to live in Harry Potter land. Let's go. And then, you know, moving on to the train. So like I've been to London. I've done Harry Potter tours of London. And when you go into King's Cross Station, that's what, especially like in the tunnel at the beginning, especially is what the tube stations look like. Like it looks like the train station. And when we went for that special event at first, one of Shannon's friends is British, and she was like, guys, this is nuts. It's like, this is what train stations look like. You know, the ads look like what the advertisements look like, you know, and you go through, you know, there's the effect to make it look like you're going through a wall, which does clog up traffic a lot, but it's fun. You know, that's cool. It looks like the people in front of you are going through the wall. And then the train is really cool. Like, yes, you have to have a park hopper in order to do it, which is mean and yet brilliant. But it's a really cool ride. Like, I didn't expect it to like be something other than you were on the train. You know, but there's the window, you know, things happen outside the window, and then, you know, things happening in the hallway is really cool. You know, and you're on the train and you're going to Hogwarts. The only thing that bothers me is that of the original 3 actors, it's only Rupert Grint's voice. And whoever is playing Hermione is awful. He doesn't sound.
I wonder why they wouldn't use the original actors.
I think it has to be availability or like their willingness, because they used them all in the original, and money, like you don't want to. You know, those 2 were like, no, it's pay us too much. Why didn't you use them in Gringotts? Yeah. Because they said no. So it's like, okay,
because they still have careers.
You know, I thought it's sort of like, you have Rupert Grint and he's like, I'll do it. Why didn't you just try to get different actors? Like, not to try to fake have Harry Potter and Hermione Granger, but like, I bet the kid who plays Neville would have recorded for less money, or Ginny,
or Cho,
you know, Malfoy. Like, there are a lot of other kids you could have chosen from who people would have still recognized the voices for, and you would have recognized the voices for them because they wouldn't have been horrible impressions. Horrible. But I like the train, and it's fun
like
to
the
ride
twins
on the
show
train.
up at the drop of a hat. Like,
for anything. Harry Potter celebrations are there every time.
Yeah. Ivana Lynch is like the biggest Harry Potter fan in the world. She would have done it. I've met her. She's very sweet. Her voice is that high.
So what's the best ice cream flavor?
I really like the apple like crumble ice cream.
Yeah, that's good.
That's usually my choice.
Alicia?
I've
Lavender,
had the
the Earl
butterbeer
Grey.
and the Earl Grey. I hate Earl Grey tea. I was just fed it by my wife. But the butterbeer is everybody's favorite. Butterbeer is a better question.
Frozen.
Frozen, absolutely. Yeah, frozen for sure. And again, that's one of those
so
things.
it's unanimously frozen. I've never had the hot.
I've never had the hot.
That's one of those things that we go back for, though, is like when we're talking about going to Universal, we're talking about the butterbeer because like that's just a thing that we love when we go there. So, you know, if we're going and we're headed down to Florida, we're like, okay, we know we're going to Universal if we ask the kids to pack their wands. And then, you know, it's like, oh, can we get butterbeer? Well, of course we're going to get butterbeer. What are you, crazy? So, I mean, I really enjoy that. The LeFou's Brew is the closest thing that Disney has to it, and it's not the same.
I actually find butterbeer to be a bit too sweet. Shannon and I will almost always get a butterbeer, but we split it because like we can't finish one on our own. I will say I've tried pumpkin juice once, and that was horrible.
That's what I heard. That people said it was terrible. I haven't heard good things about the elixirs either.
But the bottles look good.
The bottles are cool. I was like, that's why people are buying this is because of the bottles. People are buying the water because of the bottles.
Ron, you like
I
the
like
pumpkin
it, but I
juice?
like everything pumpkin flavored. Like I eat.
I love.
Yeah, but I really
flavored.
like pumpkin. So
Pumpkin is like my favorite scent. I love pumpkin flavored things. I just didn't like the pumpkin juice.
Yeah, I'm with you, Colleen.
There's an orange. There's other cool drinks like at the Leaky Cauldron that you can get, and I've had some of those and they're fun. There's like an orange one that I like. And there's a cool thing in Carket Market where basically you buy a bottle of water and then they give you like a flavor. You're making a potion. So I think Shannon and I made like, I don't know, fireproof potion or something, and you pour, you know, red into your bottle of water and it's like fruit punch. But that was kind of fun. We made a potion. And it was, you know, you had the Gilly water bottle. I will say, I don't think I've ever tried any of the alcohol in Diagon Alley or Hogsmeade because we just go to the Leaky Cauldron and we'll get like butterbeer. But there are multiple bars.
I had they have the one that's basically like a version of a black and tan with theirs. I think it's called the Death Eater or something like that. I forget.
That one. There's also this.
It was a fan-made idea.
Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, apparently at one point they said you can't use the name, and then they started using the name that the fans came up with. I don't know, but it's good. All the beers have been good. I haven't had the fire whiskey.
I don't like beer, so like they were like, here's a fancy cocktail that's $15. I'd be down. The cool thing about butterbeer, if you don't know this, they made a bunch of different recipes of butterbeer and then had J.K. Rowling taste them. And she picked the right one. So, you know, that's cool. It's things like that I think are cool where she's like, yep, that's what butterbeer tastes like. And you're like, well, no one else knows. So,
yeah,
we'll make that.
All right, I'm going to keep us moving along. We're going to come back to Harry Potter once we get to Islands, but it is 10:13. So we're not here until midnight, like regular news tonight. Let's keep going.
We're going to keep to a time schedule.
Yeah, something like that. Hey, we started on time, so we're already beating them.
Colleen actually had to start like or maybe even early. It was great. It was crazy.
Yeah, we were all here. We all did sound check. We were good.
Anyway.
All right,
Okay.
so
The trip was called the Deathly Hallows. That's what it is.
The Deathly Hallows. Okay. The next section of the park, I just recently learned the name of this pavilion. For 24 years of my life, I had no clue it had a name. I thought it was the weird space section of the park with white rounded architecture. Turns out it's called hold on, I wrote it down
World
here.
Expo.
World Expo, thank you. It's based after the World's Fair. Of course, this area used to hold our beloved attraction, Back to the Future, the ride. Today, it just has Men in Black, Alien Attack, and then Fear Factor. That's pretty much it. It's really small. This area is great for horror nights, I've found, because it can fit like 3 or 4 houses at the back of it. So that's like, I ride, Men in Black, and then I go Horror Nights, and then I move on. What's your experience with this area?
World Expo used to be include Back to the Future, but then when they broke it out into Springfield, that's no longer included, right? Is what you're saying?
Technically, Springfield was included up until 2016. That's when they finally got broken off of the map and into their own section. So even when Springfield was built, it was still a part of it. And then in 2016, they split them off when they had the rest of their expansion filled out.
So the Fear Factor Live used to be, when it first opened, the Wild 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 West stunt show, which I thought was pretty cool. Part of that is, I do like Westerns. My dad was a huge Western fan, and so we used to go do that. And I can hear them doing like the international versions of it's the show's about to start. And it's like you'd hear like a lot of a language you didn't understand, and then you'd hear Wild, Wild, Wild West, and then they would go back into something else. So I have that in my brain. It's just like something from being a little kid. But that I think was I've actually never seen Fear Factor Live. Is it any good?
I haven't seen it.
I've never bothered.
Well, there you go.
I've seen a video of it because I had a friend win.
Oh. Okay.
And
that makes sense.
I don't know, parts of it seemed cool. I was never into Fear Factor because I didn't want to watch people eat gross things.
I just look at where this is situated next to, and like we talked about earlier, next to Diagon Alley, and feel like this is just real estate that is waiting to be overtaken by Potter, because I don't think anybody stops. People probably don't even know it's here. I can't imagine it ever has a full show, even when the park is at capacity. So that one, again, and here's a good thing, is we're all Universal fans, and none of us have actually seen it in person. But the Men in Black, I think, is a great ride. I love that attraction. I love the queue for that one, I think, is great. I think...
Oh.
No.
Ron!
Well,
Rob! Are you both on?
Not me.
No, you're good. You're good. It's just Rob.
Men in Black is like the one thing that we'll ride outside of Harry Potter. Like when Shannon and I get to the park, we'll usually ride Men in Black first, and then go into Diagon Alley. Because it's a fun ride. It's kind of like Buzz Lightyear for adults. But the queue is great. I love the story, and then that frees your memory at the end, and then you just go back out.
I will say, I don't like Fear Factor. I can't say I don't like it. I've never done it. That area is great for when Bill and Ted used to be around, and now for Academy of Villains is the only reason that I'm cool with that stage still staying there. I know, I saw your shirt and I was like, Bill and Ted. So you understand. I needed a home.
So many people talk about this shirt whenever I wear it.
Sorry.
It's so good.
Rob's back.
You're fine.
No, I guess I was just going to say that Men in Black is awesome. But the World's Fair thing, the fact that it mimics the 1964 World's Fair is very cool, since that's such a big deal in Men in Black.
And in our culture, the 1964 World's Fair is the reason that we have It's a Small World.
Yeah, it is. And it's interesting that they put all those, there's a lot of houses back there, right, on Horror Nights. That you can exit, at least one or two from back there. So that's kind of neat. But I do miss Back to the Future.
There's two between them, and then there's three.
Yeah, because I know last year when you first went out,
and then three to the side.
Exactly, yeah, because this year I think it was just the one, because that's where House of 1,000 was, and then they had the three. So I think it probably depends on the size of that building. But yeah. So that's why this area is good, because
but Back to the Future, the ride, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Back to the Future DVDs have the ride in its entirety on the Blu-rays, and so I've watched it and relived it, and it has the pre-show, it has the whole thing, because when you're going through the line and you see Doc Brown on the screens, and you see Biff and he's running around behind the scenes, all of that stuff is included on there. It's really well done putting it on there, and easy enough for them to do, and worth the price of admission for those DVDs. So definitely take a look.
Really cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it is cool. I've watched it. It's cool. You're like, I remember that. My biggest memory
so much better.
Back to the Future is I remember being in line, and extended family was with us, and we were all like, Doc doesn't say dang. This is ridiculous. We were so bothered by that he wasn't saying damn. I understand why he's not saying damn, but it sounds wrong. But yeah, we liked that. You know, we love Back to the Future.
Can I say one thing though that I was thinking about with Men in Black too is that, and I feel like there are too many places in Universal that you have to put your stuff in a locker versus Disney.
Yes.
And that, it just drives me crazy because it's this whole extra chore of you got to get in and wait in line and put your stuff in the locker and remember which locker it was and who's gonna put their thumb on, you know, whatever, or swipe their park ticket now.
Anything in Disney World where you're required to put your stuff in a locker.
Not even on Rock and Roller Coaster. They're like, sure, you might lose your phone. You're in charge of it. Like on Universal, it's like Men in Black, which like you're not going to lose anything on. My mom did lose a shoe, different story. But like, you can't bring a backpack on. Like, come on.
It's such a, I mean, it's such an added annoyance. But I mean, if you've been as many times as we have, you get kind of trained to, you know, you go up and you're with somebody else and they start to head to Men in Black. You're like, no, we got to go over here. We got to get in the, you know, put their stuff in the locker. When we went for Horror Nights, we didn't realize how we had to like dump our drinks. And that was, you know, that was a pain. And there was that huge trough that was there up in the Men in Black lockers where you had to dump your drinks if you had, you know, like the refillable mugs. So I feel like that's the one thing that I wish they could find a way around because Universal makes you do it so many times.
That's true, because both the big Harry Potter rides are like that. Men in Black is like that. And it's
Mummy.
Every roller coaster, like when you go on Hulk, they have a detector.
Almost everything.
Yeah.
And you know we don't fit super well in lockers? Wands.
Those lockers are very small. They are not wand shaped.
No.
But you can pay extra for the big ones.
Well, when they installed so like the first day they installed the lockers, I think it was over at Hulk. I mean, not the lockers, the metal detectors, and there were some incidents on Dueling Dragons that caused it, but they were making people take off glasses and put them in the locker.
How are you supposed to see?
And people are like, I can't walk from the locker to the ride. I mean, it was probably one or two poorly trained team members, but.
Yeah, and especially in Forbidden Journey, there's a lot of cool stuff to see that you wouldn't be able to see if you didn't have your glasses on in the queue. So that, I mean, again, that's just something that strikes me as different between the two parks. You know, there are positives, absolutely, but that just drives me crazy.
No, that's a really good point. I'm gonna move us forward. So we already kind of talked about it, but as you leave World Expo, you merge into Springfield, home of the Simpsons. Of course, this was where Back to the Future was until it was replaced by the Simpsons ride. And kind of as I talked about before, but it wasn't until 2016 until they got their own portion on the Universal map. Here you can ride King and Kudo's Twirl and Hurl in the Simpsons ride. You can shop at the famous Quickie Mart, eat on Fast Food Boulevard, Moe's Tavern, or visit the Duck Brewery, and of course get the famous pink donut from our Dad's Donuts.
So the donut, I love the donut. Have you had the donut, Alicia?
I've never had it. I've seen it, and I'm like, that looks like too much food.
Last time when we went down for the Reflections event, some of us went to like the Horror Nights, and when we were there, I was like, now we're gonna get this donut because I've had the big ones, but not the ones that come in like the cake boxes. Oh, it's so good.
Knife and the fork.
Yep, exactly. It's so good. And here's the other thing that actually bothers me about this is the Quickie Mart. There was about a decade ago, maybe so, there was a Simpsons movie tie-in where they took a bunch of 7-Elevens across the country and they made them Quickie Marts. And when they did that, like everybody was dressed in the Quickie Mart costume. They had Crustios for sale. They had squishies. You know, and I'm kind of a longtime Simpsons fan, so like, the fact that this Quickie Mart isn't an actual Quickie Mart is kind of disappointing to me. I feel like it should be more like those things where you should be able to go in and get a Duff beer from there and get a squishy and get, you know, the things that you know from the movies. So I mean the TV show. So I think that's a miss that it's just a gift shop.
I've like never really watched the show. So for me, like this area, like I go and ride the ride if we feel like riding the ride, which is not all the time. But I think like like, did they do a good job with this? Do you feel like you're in Simpsons? Like, you would know, Rob, right? Like,
the Lard Lad statue is great. The Duff bottles, those are cool. I mean, it's got a little bit of the feel to it, but it's supposed to be kind of like like a Krusty's area, like, a crusty town type of a thing. But I like the Lard Lad statue. I love the donut.
Yeah.
The Moe's Tavern's kind of cool, but it, again, it's sort of like feels like it's just an offshoot of the food court. So I don't know. I'm not a huge fan anymore, but I used to be a huge fan of The Simpsons. But all I really go to this area for is the donut, because the ride, I mean, every now and then I'll ride it again just to make sure I don't love it, and I don't love it. I don't think it holds up. I wish they would do something more unique and cooler with this, but. So, and it's the second place in the park that is now Disney IP inside of Universal.
I enjoy the ride. I don't know if it's the same.
I was gonna say, maybe you would know, Ron, because you do like the lawyer stuff, but like, is this in danger with like being a Disney IP now, or like, is this like, because I know Marvel is safe in Islands of Adventure, but I don't know about Simpsons.
I think Ron is frozen.
You know what though? I will say that I don't think Disney wants this. Like, where would you put this? Because it's too edgy for a Disney park.
The
so
has no place on Disney property. Like, I don't.
Yeah, I think
they
it's.
Want it. And I'm sure it's similar with Marvel. A contract exists.
Yeah.
That has some specific amount of time. So at some point, maybe Disney can be like, we don't want to renew it, tear it down. But it's not an IP that they're going to want to use on their property. I say this, I've never watched The Simpsons, and this took away Back to the Future. So you just walk through it, and that's the
Yeah, I don't love it, the whole area, but I do, again, I think the Lard Lad statue is cool, and the donuts, because clearly I'm a person that loves a donut.
I do love a donut too. Maybe I'll have to try it. I'll be down in October, so we'll see. Maybe that'll be my time.
Honestly, when we talk about Disney parks again, and I'm sorry if I keep interjecting that, but, there are a lot of.
We're a Disney site, so.
Yeah, but there are a lot of, and I think it's hard not to make comparisons between the two. But when we talk about Disney, one of the things that you think about a lot of times, and we definitely feel it in quarantine, is not being able to have the special Disney snacks that we love. We love the Dole Whip, or we love the churros, or we love the Mickey shaped pretzels, and all these things. I don't think there's a lot of those things that exist in Universal, and maybe it's just because it hasn't been around as long as some of the Disney parks have. Maybe I don't know, but Butterbeer we talked about, definitely Butterbeer. 100% agree on that one. And to me, again, the donut, but the donut's not super special because the Joffrey's donuts are I think they're made by the same people, so they taste the same. And when you go into Epcot and you walk up to a Joffrey's, you can get a big pink iced donut. But that big Lard Lad donut is something that is unique to that area, that I think is again one of those kind of like searchable treats. But other than that, and the Butterbeer, I can't really think of anything in either park that I go, oh, there's that snack that I gotta go get. I mean, can you guys think of something?
Pizza fries at Horror Nights?
I was saying that's only during Horror Nights too. Like, you got a very limited time to get those pizza fries.
I've never had them. Where do you get them?
It's been different booths.
Yeah. If you go, it's in, like, I know predominant areas like New York. I believe it's New York, kind of down where Blues Brothers might be. There's like an empty street, and they put like a courtyard there for Mardi Gras as well. But they've got a bunch of.
The snack bar next to ET had them one year.
Okay.
I didn't know about
you were asking me a question about the legality of it. Is I don't know the Simpsons contract, if it's in perpetuity like the Marvel one. I don't know if that's like the Marvel one leaked, maybe because it was a whole license for a whole company at a point, is why it got out there. But financial terms were missing, and some of the remuneration terms weren't on there. But the majority of the contract's there. I have not heard of anybody who's posted the Simpsons one, so I don't know if they have a sunset clause or a renewal time or anything like that. I'd love to see them do Treehouse of Horror if they can get their hands on it for a Horror Nights house, because I think that would be the absolute most amazing thing. Like, they always do one funny house, and they could do a Treehouse of Horror every year.
That would be cool.
That's
hey, so
really good.
I just thought about this when you were saying that, Ron, is that when, as Disney fans and Disney park fans, when we heard about Marvel being purchased, I think the first thing we thought about was, oh, cool, Marvel attractions. Wait a minute, what does that mean for islands? I think we all thought that at some point, is like, you know, and what's the contract say, and when's it up, and will Disney fight for it? And I don't think any of us asked that question about The Simpsons. So, I mean, like, oh, we got to get that. I mean, because again, it doesn't make sense. But I feel differently about the Marvel stuff. I don't mind if they keep all the Marvel stuff in Marvel Superhero Island, as long as they allow them to build their own Marvel stuff in Disney. And I don't think that the Universal would want that.
Right.
Well, they are in California. That's why they're getting campus.
And the Disney lawyers have been very good about willing the language down to like characters that existed, characters that they used by a certain date. That's why they're allowed to use Guardians and like certain other meet and greets in the park, because at a certain point, Universal like couldn't pull in any more characters because they would have to license. I think they maxed out their license at a time. So once they did that, like, oh, you've hit your 100 characters, and that counts the ones like on murals and stuff like that. I don't know what the specific thing is, but that's my understanding is why you had like, I think it was Strange and the Guardians were the only meet and greets. I don't think Black Panther met in Florida because he was an Avenger.
No.
Yeah. But I mean, they can do stuff on the West Coast. They can't do stuff on the East Coast. But is there a language in there that gives the Universal a time to do they automatically get to re-up all the time?
I think it's an in perpetuity as far as until they decide they don't want it anymore, they can do that. I mean, there's definitely some drawbacks. Like Disney gets to look at their books to audit to make sure they're getting the right royalties, which is probably something they're not always thrilled about. And now that's going to happen on both sides of the parks. So, you know, there's been talks of deals, and supposedly, like there was one where Universal was willing to sell the rights, but they wanted Disney to back off of doing Oz the Great and Powerful because they wanted to do the Wicked movie at the same time, and Disney wasn't going to back off the movie and pay for the rights. So there's been some deals discussed before, theoretically, but I don't see it happening until Universal has something they really want to put in that spot. That's when it would go away. And I can't see that happening unless somehow, well, right now there's talk that Warner wants to set, like AT&T doesn't want DC anymore. There's been some chatter about that. They're like talking about shutting down the comics division. It's just internet chatter as far as I know. I don't know how realistic all that is, but like if that was suddenly for sale and Universal says, okay, well, we're just going to buy DC, throw it in there because Six Flags isn't anywhere nearby, and we could probably, you know, scare off Six Flags with a couple $100 at this point. So that would be the only way I see it going away anytime in the near future. Marvel, they've made it too profitable for them because people want to go for those characters.
Where to next?
Off to Woody Woodpecker's KidZone. This kind of features featuring bright splashes of primary colors. This is where the Universal characters that kids know, or maybe only 90s kids or older at this point, come to life. You can have a day in the park with Barney, hang out at Fievel's Playland. I don't even know who Fievel is. Ride Woody Woodpeckers in the house coaster and the children play area. Curious George goes to town. Of course, this is also where E.T. lives. I know who E.T. is, guys. For shopping, you can go to the Barney store, E.T.'s Toy Closet and Photo Spot, and of course, the SpongeBob Store Pan store, and eat at KidZone Pizza Company because kids love pizza. So yeah, so I was born in '96, so like I know who some of these people are. Like I know Curious George, and I know E.T., and I know Barney. I grew up with Barney, but like Fievel, Who is Fievel Woody Woodpecker? I don't know because my dad
Fievel's
showed me it.
Fievel's a
Fievel
Russian
Mouskowitz.
Jewish mouse.
Fievel Mouskowitz.
And
It was a
they're
movie created by
escaping-
Don Bluth, who was a Disney animator who created the revolution that took that split apart the animation department in the early 80s. He went and started making movies like Secret of Nim, Land Before Time.
Okay.
Took a lot of the animators with him. It was a Spielberg produced movie. It was a huge hit in the mid 80s. And then there was a bad, mediocre sequel, Fievel Goes West, in the late 80s.
They're
But
immigrants
at the
and they're
time,
escaping cats. They sing this great song, "There are no cats in America."
America.
it's our favorite cheese.
Yeah, it's, you know what though, I don't think you necessarily need to know who Fievel is to enjoy this if you're a little kid. They are some neat attractions. It's just that, like Seuss Landing, the over the time, like, it's just faded. Like, that's what I find so amazing about Diagon Alley, is that the effects don't seem to break. They take really good care of that section of the park, whereas, like, I feel like this one, at least in certain years, has fallen under great disrepair. So I think it's a little bit I think this was the area that they were talking about putting Nintendo Land into. So had that been in this park instead of Epic Universe, this would all be gone. But, like, it's a neat little area. And the important thing to me about this area, having had kids that were this age, is that before this, there weren't a lot of things for kids to do. We actually went, when Islands first opened, we took our son, and they said, you might want to not go there because there's really nothing for him other than Seuss Landing. And so we went into, the Universal Studios Park. But again, there's a lot of stuff that's really not for little kids. So this area is kind of like the place for little kids. So we always had a good time there. The Curious Georgetown is really actually kind of fun, and something that I look at and go, Disney would never do this. They have, like, air cannons with, like, playground balls that you shoot at each other. Like, Disney would never do this. And they have people, like, little kids running around in the park, in their underwear sometimes, I guess, because it's a little like a sprinkle park, but you get soaked in there. So, I was sort of sad just because the memories we had that this was going to leave. But at the same time, if Nintendo was coming to replace it, bring on the wrecking balls, because, like, this would have been a great thing to have that in there. Now it's going to be cool at Epic Universe, but I feel like this place is very outdated. The Barney thing seems way played out. Even SpongeBob is a stretch at this point. I honestly don't remember where the KidZone Pizza Company is, because I've never eaten in this area.
I think
So,
I've actually
Ron
done
and
all
Rob,
of
you
these
guys both have-
attractions, but not in like 15 years. Other than, like, we'd still
Except
go
E.T.
ride E.T.
Yeah, I
No,
love
that's a
it.
good point. E.T. is the only thing, and it's the only, like, to my knowledge, it's like the only opening day attraction that still exists.
And
Because all the
And this era used to be where Hard Rock was. Everything,
Oh,
ET
true.
was the only thing that was here. It was ET, and then next to it was Hard Rock, and up on top of a hill was a facade for the Bates Motel and the house. That was all here. And when they started doing the whole, we're going to become Universal Escape or whatever they were calling it, they moved Hard Rock over. The parking lot became City Walk. The two largest, like, garages in the world at the time were built, and everything got moved around. But this was the guitar-shaped Hard Rock restaurant was here.
Yeah, that was cool. And you can still see the part of that building, I think, still exists, that you can see when you're riding the Woody Woodpecker roller coaster. Like, part of that Hard Rock building that was over there. But the ET ride, yeah, I mean, that's one that seems to have stayed, and I'm surprised they never got rid of it, but I don't know. Like I said, I think that's the only thing left from opening day.
The Gory, Gruesome, and Grotesque.
Oh.
Which is,
The makeup show.
You know what's
yeah.
funny about that? And I think Colleen was talking about the makeup show coming in. As many times as I've been to Universal, that's the only thing I've never done.
I've never done it either. My mom and I were talking about it. We're going to do it this year at Halloween Nights, but, like, I've never done it.
That and the Animal Actors I haven't done in years. Is Animal Actors still running at all?
It is. I looked it up before we had the show.
Not right now, but I mean, yes, it is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, as a matter of fact, that's one of those things that my wife and daughter don't like thrill rides. So my son and I would go do a thrill ride, and they would go see the Animal Actors show. That's a cute show.
As I was saying, one of the worst days I ever had working at a theme park is I got sent over because we had extra staff. They needed extra staff. I got sent over and I worked as the greeter in front of Fievel's Playland for a day, and there was nobody coming in there. And the couple of people that went in, I had to like tell them their kids were too short to do the water slide thing that's there. So it was a horrible day, and I think Twister caught fire that day.
Oh,
there's a story in the chat that they heard from someone who would know that Spielberg has threatened to take all of his IPs out of the parks if they ever removed E.T.
I've heard similar stories that they keep it in there to keep him happy. And Universal's done everything they can to keep Spielberg happy over the years. Amblin's still on the lot. I think that's why they bought DreamWorks. It's he's their cash cow still, and like,
yeah,
they don't want to upset him.
Don't want to lose Jurassic Park.
Keep Spielberg and JK happy, and you're gonna be okay.
Yeah, you'll have the money.
Yeah,
you'll be fine.
You could just
build a Harry
Potter land and Jurassic Park. People would go.
You know, the Terminator show that was here, we went and saw one of the last shows, and I really enjoyed that. I thought it was interesting that it was not like overtly obvious that it was there. It's kind of like the Diagon Alley thing where it was like it wasn't super like big fanfare outside the building as to what it was. But I enjoyed that show. But we were talking the other night, and Tom brought up that he thinks that the Bourne show is going to be amazing. So I'm looking forward to being able to see that.
With that, let's go into the last part of the park, which is Hollywood. This, of course, features the Universal Horror Makeup Show, and like Rob just said, the Bourne Spectacular will be there soon. I think they were supposed to open probably right around when COVID happened, so that was kind of sad. But you can shop at the Brown Derby here, Silver Screen Collectibles, Williams of Hollywood Prop Shop, or Cyber Image. For dining, there's Mel's Drive, Beverly Hills Boulangerie. Oh boy, I just butchered that. Sorry, people. Shop's Pharmacy. Thank you. Look at that. We're supposed to do pronunciation before we have shows, but whatever. It's fine. This is kind of like when you first walk into the park with Production Central. The area of this it's really, really large. There's a lot of space for people to walk. There's like stars on the street for like Hollywood Walk of Fame, so that you know where you are. You're in Hollywood. There's like a jazzy tune in the background, and I kind of really just like this area, even though there's not much to it. I don't know, it's kind of relaxing, and you can definitely tell that it's supposed to be Hollywood as opposed to like Production Central, New York, San Fran. They all kind of blend together.
To me, it would have been cool had they, like we talked about when this started, had they been able to move it and this be your walkway into the park, because it is
especially
sort of
the
like
stars. That would have been cool.
Yeah, like it's the golden age of Hollywood, and I don't know if it's because Hollywood Boulevard is already like that at Hollywood Studios or what, but it feels like if that had been moved over, because there's not a lot to do there, that it would have been a much more majestic like entry into this park. The one thing that I love about this area is that across from where Bourne will be, there's the Universal AP Center. And it's kind of like a lounge sort of thing. You go in there and you can get a frozen Coke. Have you guys done that where they take one of these bottles and they put it down in water and they push a button and then it freezes it, like it makes it slush?
What?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Look it up. There's like a video of it happening. It's very cool. I literally went, we had AP for like a couple years and I went just to do that because it was kind of neat.
That's really cool.
Well, like I told the story, my Thespian Society high school group, we went to Universal and Islands for like a field trip, and we went to the horror makeup show, and then we got to like have a Q&A afterwards.
Cool.
That might be the last time I saw it. But I remember it being very cool, and as a theater person, it was cool learning about how they do the makeup and horror makeup, which is a whole different thing than just highlights and shadows and whatever. It's how do you make yourself a vampire or whatever.
But I mean, it's a cool thing, though. I mean, you would recommend it to somebody because, again, I've literally never been in it. And I also think about, like you mentioned before, that real estate's valuable there. Is it a good enough show to have been there this long?
I mean, they don't have a lot of shows, grand scheme of things. It has been a long time. I think it's definitely at least cool to see once. Like, I don't think it'd be cool if, little kids aren't going to think it's fun. It might take a while, actually, before kids think it's interesting. As theater kids, we thought it was really interesting, It's cool to see how, and since it is so old in a way, they're talking about prosthetics and stuff. It's not, we put green dots on your face and then you're a monster.
Right.
No, we're going to put things on you.
Yeah, that's
years
cool.
upon years ago, for Horror Nights, they had, one of the scare zones was from Face Off, like the old sci-fi TV show. And one of the winners from that season got to have her monsters that she had made, and I think a couple other people from the show had their stuff there, and it was in Hollywood, so it was a really nice tie-in to the makeup show, because that's literally what they did on that show, and I always thought that was really cool.
One thing we didn't talk about on any of this was, have you guys seen the nighttime show? Because it happens right off of Hollywood, on the little lake that's between Hollywood and, I guess, over by San Francisco.
As I walked out.
I lived literally next door to it, so every night we could go out by our hot tub, and not only could we hear the audio, but we could see the fireworks. So we would just sit out there and drink and just listen to it, and by the end we could quote it. So I'm pretty over the show, but I have seen it.
Well, the newer one is the one I'm talking about. How long ago was this?
2016.
She's a baby.
Okay, 2016. You said, yeah. I think that the one that's there now, and I forget the name of it. It is different because it uses a lot of projection mapping. I think it's only about a year old, and it's just basically retelling all the stories of the movies that you get to see while you're there. But I feel like it's sort of a poor man's World of Color. I mean, I don't think there's a great vantage point to watch it. And again, maybe I'm wrong in that, but I did try to take it in the last time I was there, and I just thought it was kind of okay. It's nice that they're doing something.
Better or worse than the Lagoon show that they did for Horror Nights this year? Kind of the same, where you need the vantage point, or?
I didn't see the Lagoon show. So, I know.
Oh my gosh, it was so good.
Sorry. You know what the thing about Horror Nights is that, and just to me as someone who had never gone before, is that the lines are insane, and it's almost impossible to get in there unless you buy the pass to get in on a regular ticket and actually be able to get through more than a couple houses in a night. And so, I mean, that to me struck me as I guess that's why people buy the multiple night experiences, so that they can go back again and again. So we really didn't have much time to do much because of, being in the line, because some of them were 2-3 hour lines, like Stranger Things.
Yeah, I've been to Halloween Horror Nights once. We went for my birthday. And it was we only did a couple houses before being this is it. I don't want to stand in line anymore. Let's just go. I'm done. Yeah. And I love Halloween. And I love haunted houses because it's a theater thing. They're not scary, but it's cool to see how they work. I like going through. I'm the person in the haunted house that the actors hate, because I tend to go with people who get scared, and I'm there's an actor up there. They're going to come out of the floor. There's smoke. Oh, they're on a wire. But then they're not scared, and so they're not mean to me.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I have really good night vision, so I see everything in the dark, and I can see wherever I go for the theming. And my favorite houses are always the well-themed ones. But my recommendation for Horror Nights is get there. You got to get there for rope drop. Get 3 or 4 houses in before lines get really bad. Do And honestly, we just skipped Stranger Things and what was the other one we said? And Us, because the lines were just too long this year. Well, we got 8 houses, saw the show, did a couple rides in one night. But because the middle of the night when the lines are all an hour, hour and a half, that's when you go to the shows, the rides, things like that. Yeah, that's the way I would I recommend it. Or
But
if you can get if I'm going alone, I'm buying the pass, the express.
yeah, but if you're going with a family of 4, no, that's a lot.
It's too expensive. It's way too expensive.
But even getting into the park that night was so bad. The crowds were just like 30 people back, shoved in, like it was I can't, again, in post-COVID land, I can't imagine how they're going to handle that kind of a thing, because it was shoulder to shoulder, front and back, and just, again, getting in was horrible. Maybe that was the horror. I don't know. But it was, I liked it. I had a good time, but honestly, and I'm just a dork, I guess, I would rather do Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party.
Okay.
I like doing both. I like doing something new, so that was fun.
Do we have anything else to say about Universal proper?
I've got nothing.
I think it's improved over the years, but I still have a nostalgic look for those original attractions because they were massive in scale, which caused a lot of problems for them, but they were very ambitious and very well done.
Yeah, I agree. So what,
Colleen,
what
do you
now?
have anything?
Oh, no.
Break? Do we want to break?
Yeah, we're gonna play a couple commercials. Your volume's still gonna be on, so mute yourselves. And then we'll be back and hopefully talk less about islands.
I'm being stung repeatedly.
There's a bee. Oh.
Why is there a bee?
It's very cold out. They've come in.
What do we do? Get off!
Well, bees hate water.
You can't do that. Because all our hives have
Could have
been
remembered the
destroyed.
script, by the way. Thanks, Bee.
The script?
You didn't go to CityWorks, Bee.
I'm a space bee!
Oh no, not the space!
Has this ever happened to you? You go to a character greeting, but you don't know what to say, and it ends up just being awkward, and you end up getting photos of you with the face like, what do I do with my life? I used to be just like you, but thanks to my new book, Character Interactions for the Socially Inept, you too can master common phrases to spark a character interaction. Phrases like, that's a nice outfit, or what brings you to the Mexican pavilion today? To more specific character phrases like, boy, that Luke Skywalker's a giant piece of garbage, isn't he? Just buy my new book, and you'll be having meaningful conversations with fictional characters in no time. includes specifically helpful tips such as don't stare at Aladdin's chest the whole time, or don't tell Star-Lord you know his real name is Peter Quill. That's supposed to be a secret identity. Why would you know that? And we even have a short chapter on flirting with Gaston. Don't! You can find character interactions for the socially inept wherever less important digital books are sold. Buy now and get my bonus book for free, How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying.
And we're back. Hi, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Real quick, if you like the things we're doing here at WDWNT, join WIGS. So, what is it called? I don't even know now. The WDWNT Interglobe Society on Patreon. For as little as $2 a month, you can get extra stuff. Or super chat. End of speech.
We like super chats. Thank you. Thank you for everyone who, and we had one donation earlier. I think it was Jesse Edwards. Thank you, Jesse. You support us. You feed us. Yes, hearts. We went long tonight, so I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a break for tonight, and we're gonna come back sometime next week or the week after that until the park's open, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna talk about Islands of Adventure. So I want to thank you guys first, Rob, Colleen, Rob, for talking all things Universal. I had a really great time putting this together, and I think we've had time talking about it. Be sure to come back and join us tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. to watch Give My Regards to Broadway, and then we'll have the return of Pressing Issues tomorrow night at 8 p.m.
Oh, that's
and Colleen, since...
Hold on. It's the wrong picture.
Waiting. We got this.
I gotta find it.
Thank you, Shorn Forest, for the $1.49 donation. Thank you very much.
Yes, that's awesome.
Colleen, since you're on the Broadway show and you're hosting it tomorrow, do you want to give us a little taste of what it will be?
Broadway?
Just a taste.
Okay.
Just a little bit.
Just
a
coming
tease.
up on WDWNT Live tomorrow morning, Give My Regards to Broadway. So a bunch of us are going to be on. We're going to talk about different Disney theatrical productions, whether they were on Broadway or not on Broadway. So like if you did, a Disney show somewhere else, or saw a Disney show somewhere else. We will have multiple theatrical professionals on, people who do theater professionally who can talk about theater. So that's tomorrow at 11. And I'm hosting because I like theater. Also, I'm one of the theater professionals, but I haven't actually seen a lot of Disney shows, so I don't know what I'm going to contribute. We will then probably talk about other Broadway shows. People can talk about other Broadway shows they've seen. If you were really savvy, you'd know that the Ravenclaw shirt I was wearing today is from Cursed Child on Broadway. And then tomorrow night...
Soft flex.
What?
I said that's a soft flex.
At 8 p.m., Pressing Issues, our new long-form discussion show, which is every Sunday at 8 p.m. And on Monday, it's May 4th. May the 4th be with you.
Ooh, sexy.
I believe that Monday morning, Tom and Nick are going to argue about the ranking of the Star Wars films. Tom thinks Rogue One is the worst Star Wars film ever, and he's wrong. And at 9 p.m., we'll have Cosmic Read Live. I believe he will be playing Star Wars-y things. Cosmic Read Live is every Monday at 9 p.m. Then on Tuesday, May 5th, at 11 a.m., Cooking with Nick. Cooking from the Star Wars cookbook, because it's Revenge of the Fifth.
Ooh.
Ooh. And then they will be having Revenge of the Fifth themed show that night at 9. I believe they're going to rank like heroic and villainous moments, talk about Clone Wars because it will have ended the day before, etc. Star Wars is cool. And on Wednesday, May 6th in the morning, we're going to watch some more Tokyo Disney videos of Tokyo Disney things, because that's the place. And at 9 p.m., Park Center. You can watch Park Center every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. And was this last episode your 100th episode, Rob, or is that
No,
coming up?
this is gonna be May 6th. That's gonna be the 100th episode. We are very excited.
Okay,
And especially
so
still
Wednesday,
working.
100th episode of Park Center. And we
It's
got
really cool. I actually did a deep dive on, like, I went back and looked at every episode to see like who was on what episode and some of the milestones that we've had, and it's kind of exciting. So I'm hoping everybody tunes in.
Yeah.
Also, just like a little, like a side mention, Deep in the Plus this week on Tuesday night at 7, we're going to be, Ben from Park Center is going to be on with me, and we are talking about Phineas and Ferb and the Star Wars episode of Phineas and Ferb. So if you guys are around at 7 o'clock, you can watch that, or anytime on WDWNT on YouTube.
Very
And
cool.
someday, on the 9th, Rob is going to have a live Deep in the Plus
Yay!
about
I'm
this.
excited. I'm very excited. So I was hoping that I wouldn't get bumped for this show because you said you needed to do a part 2.
Nah.
Yeah.
We're going to be here forever, y'all.
No, and I'm pretty excited about that. We're going to do panel style. We're going to talk a lot more about Disney Plus, the originals, the things that are available in the catalog, the interface itself, and some of the other things on there. So I'm really excited about that show.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So lots of cool things coming up. You can tune in here every single day at 11 a.m. and nighttime is usually 9, but sometimes it's 8. But we post a schedule. We show a schedule every day, twice a day, until the end of time. God, I hope
One day we'll be back, Colleen. One day.
I won't have to do this anymore. No, I love this. If I wasn't at this, I might have to work for Tom.
Ooh.
So thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank
I
you.
will schedule a second episode of this. I think I know when, but I have no opinions and no decision-making power. So I have to ask for permission.
Oof.
And
I
if
know
you
you can
guys
make it happen, though.
It'll be fine. I'll just be like, hey, these things, I've got a way. I've thought of a argument. It'll be fine. But thank you for joining us. When we talked about Universal. Yeah.
It was fun. If you guys want more content, email me at Alicia@WDWNT. Thank you, Mina, for the $5 super chat. Very sweet. Thank you. And I hope you guys stay safe, stay well, and have a great night. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Hi.
Good night.